Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. It's Monday morning and welcome to the Academy for Complex Trauma. My name's Linda. I'm your certified trauma recovery coach and welcome to a session on assertiveness. I found this information and before we start today, I really want us to feel comfortable. I want us to be able to say there's no blame and there's no shame. Okay, so what's gone before us in the generations has led to this moment. But in order for us to keep moving forward, we can't leave our minds focused on the past. We have to bring it into the now. As Dr. Bessel van der Kolk will tell you, our greatest challenge with complex trauma is reality. And in order to do the assertiveness side of things well, we need to bring our focus into the here and now. So no blame, no shame. And we're going to talk about what assertiveness really is. So if I asked you the question, what is assertiveness and what does it mean to you? You're more than likely to come up with a couple of things along the lines of, well, it's speaking my mind. It's letting people know how I feel or what I think. And that's mostly right, okay? Mostly right. It's actually a bit more involved, and what we need to be willing to do is learn. And in order to learn, we also need our learning brain engaged, not just our survival brain. So be aware for you as we go through this information. It's not going to be a long one this morning, just because it's Monday morning. And be aware if you're in survival brain. Now, one of the easiest ways we can do this is recognize when we're having emotional responses to everything or any information that comes our way. So I notice this especially if my friends are going through a rough time. My first response is always emotional. And I go, oh my goodness, survival brain. No, we need to sit back and process this logically and build the emotions and the logic together. Okay, so assertiveness means speaking up for ourselves in a way that the other person can hear. So it's not just about speaking up for ourselves, we've got to be able to do it in a way that the other person can hear. Now, that's something that every generation from here on in will need to learn, unless we as parents have that ability to say, right, okay, I'm going to learn it and I'm going to teach my kids as well. And we've never had this information before, okay? Good morning, good morning, Ali and Rach. It's great to have you here. So, what would be the first step in doing this, we ask? A bit hesitant at first. So being truly assertive requires 5 skills or 5 steps, and they all work together. So it's not, when we start off, we can certainly put them in an order and go through them, but as we get used to them, we're going to be able, and applying them to people in our lives, we're going to be able to have, it's instead of a tennis match, it's going to be, let's work through this together side by side, not one person at one end of the other and trying to get their point across. And we have all had conversations like that where we've just tried to get our point across and we're trying, for me, like banging my head against a brick wall saying, can you just listen to me? You know, if you can just listen to me, we can work it through. I know with my adult kids and I, we go through, if there's an issue, we go through and work it through together. It's not a case of just me speaking, it's them speaking. And oftentimes too, it can be me as the parent, more mature adult, well, we hope sometimes, don't we, that we can say, okay, I can see what this is happening and I need to be willing to learn what's happening for them as well. Because as I keep saying, it's all new. So the first part, and this is really hard with complex trauma, is knowing what you feel even in the middle of a difficult situation. So everything's starting to press your buttons, right? And whether it's a parent or a child or a friend that's pushing your buttons, you know how you feel about this situation right in the heat of the moment as well. Now, heat of the moment doesn't mean there's anger, but you will feel pressure. Like, it can feel like your boundaries are being crossed. It can feel like you're being ignored, lots of things. But we have to be willing to put those to one side and say, but how do I feel about this situation right in front of me, right here, right now? With complex trauma, we've had to deny our emotions for many years just to be in survival mode. And if it's not complex trauma, then we've spent generations without labeling our emotions. So perhaps the first step is, when you're in the middle of a situation, say, okay, I need to take a breather and I need to go away and identify what my emotions are in this situation and be willing to do it. It's a good thing to do. It's healthy. It's going to help you minimize, and I don't mean shut down, I mean bring everything together and stop having to have the same pattern happen repeatedly. So when I say minimize, I mean as in reduce the amount of time that you're going to have to revisit this situation. So if you're revisiting the situation again and again and again, take yourself out until you can identify what your real and raw emotions are in this situation. Be willing to do it for you and for your kids. Okay, or the people around you. It may not even be your kids. You might have influence with other people in your life, but be willing to do this. Number 2, trusting that your feelings and ideas are valid and worthy of expression. When you do this, it means I'm going to sit here and I can say, okay, my feelings are valid and worthy of expression, but what I need to know more than anything is it's not about being right or wrong. It's about a process through, and they are valid to process through. I'm worthy, I can process this through. And if I stop believing in black and white, because with complex trauma we can have inflexible thinking. And look, it was such a gift the day I read about inflexible thinking, because all honesty, I went, my thinking's not inflexible. I went, oh, for goodness sake, if this is something that's real in complex trauma, I need to look at it. And it's always this way. When it comes to other people, lots of flexibility, and when it came to myself, I had inflexible thinking. So I had to be willing to adjust that thinking as well over time. So when we can do that, that's when we can say, okay, I have a valid opinion, my feelings are valid, my ideas are valid, and they are worthy of expression, because it's not about being right or wrong. It's about me exploring what's happening for me and how it fits into this exact situation. So it's like me, when I came home from Indonesia recently, Nick and I sat down, and he suffers with suicidal thoughts most days. And what happened was, when I was in Indonesia, I had a really big change of heart about how I'm approaching my life. And I guess for me, it came to a place where I knew that the ideas and everything that I had were worthy, but I also was able to be very soft and gentle about it. And when Nick and I sat down to talk, he told me what he needed from me each day now. And each day I've gone, yep, not a problem, not a worry at all. And we've continued that conversation onwards, and it's working. It may not be perfect every day, but it's beginning to work and have an effect. So it's us being willing to go, okay, each time I can change my heart, I can also look at it in a flexible way, that it's not about being right or wrong, but it is a space where I need to be willing to voice what's happening for me. Managing your feelings and putting them into words, well, that can go straight back to the beginning, because we need to be able to do that. Now, managing our emotions, managing them means that we're willing to feel them, we're willing to know what they are, and we're also willing to put them in an order so that we're not verbal vomiting over somebody else. Okay, so we're not going emotional volcano overload and spilling it all over someone. We're going to manage them. We're going to put them in an order. We're going to go, it's okay to feel them, and it is okay to verbalize what's happening. I am safe to verbalize what's happening, and I am safe to manage how they are. If we're in survival brain, the emotions will be in overload, so we need to do our work to get back to learning brain where we can put things in an order. Okay, this is the big challenge. This is where it comes into knowing how to speak so the other person can hear. So step 4 is understanding the other person or people involved, how they feel and why. Now, I've been going through this because I've just got a new son-in-law, and he's awesome. Don't get me wrong, he's absolutely awesome, great character, everything, but there's been one issue where we've butted heads, and not in a bad way. Nobody means to hurt anybody, but what I've done is sat back and worked this step. So I'm understanding where they're coming from, why it's happening for them, and then I sit back and I went, how would they feel about this? Why would they feel that way? And we're so similar in nature that it's made it easy for me to explore why he's feeling that way. I can't change how he feels, but what I can do is say, this is how I'm feeling, this is, and makes it easier for me to speak up. Okay, so I'm learning to speak up in a way that is completely different to how I used to speak up. All right, so I used to speak up and say, yep, this is how I feel, this is what I want to do, this is where I'm going. And now when it involves somebody else, I sit back and I go, okay, how can I approach this in a way that they will hear me and understand, and I'm not going to press their buttons. Believe me, it takes time and it is a challenge because we're learning it. We're not always going to get it right, and that's okay. It's a process. He's going to be around for decades. It's a process. So we're not allowed to beat ourselves up either because we're learning. We're the first generation that's stepping up and learning this information and learning how to go about expressing ourselves in a way that we can be heard by the other person. Because remember, if somebody gets their defenses up, they won't hear a word we say. So if you can see somebody's defenses are up, take some time out. Both of you take some time out, and you can either make a time to revisit it or just trust that in the process of life it will unfold and it'll all come together at the right time. We want to be taking into account the situation and setting. So I know for him at the moment, he's setting up a whole new life with my daughter in a new place, in a new home, as well as, being responsible for her. She's got to learn the language and her way around and so much. But also he's got his work. So that the pressure he's under is pretty significant. So if I can understand that, I'm also going to rephrase what I need to say and what I need to impart in order that he feels comfortable. All right? So we're going to be assertive. So we're not going to sit in an angry stage of, oh, my boundaries are being crossed and this is, because we can do that, let's face it. That's all we've ever known assertiveness was. But now, when we take into account all of these steps, we can say, right, taking into account what's happening for him, what's happening in his life, in another country, in another culture, how can I go about being heard so that it's gentle and kind for both of us? And it works, okay? I'm no professional at it, believe me. I've still got a long way to go when it comes to this, but I believe in all of us that we can do it. And if you have any challenges, step in a group and we can work through it together and make sure that we all have a happy ending and get our head around how to be what we could call mutually assertive, where both people are heard and we get the message across and we grow together as well. Okay, have the most glorious Sunday in the Northern Hemisphere and sweet dreams, and in the Southern Hemisphere, have the most wonderful Monday, and I will see you tomorrow morning with something very special. Okay, bye for now.